A restraining order against me here. But guys, welcome in to my college football best bets segment, week number 5. And guys, let me just get to the chase right now. We've got breaking huge stuff regarding major weather alerts. And there's 2 big bets I want everyone to be aware of right now. The lines are going to move. The over-unders are going to move. Let's talk about it right now. Virginia Tech at North Carolina in Chapel Hill, the under 50.5. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a major hurricane coming off the Gulf of Mexico, Hurricane Ian. And guys, you can see this game's at 3:30 Saturday during the day. 85% chance of rain. 1 to 2 inches of rain is expected. And guys, the 1 to 2 inches is crazy because 1 inch of rain equals 10 inches of snow. So that just shows you how much rain is going to be coming in. This is a 3:30 game, under 50.5. Virginia Tech already can barely score as it is. North Carolina, we know they have a terrible defense, but guys, it doesn't matter when you're playing the weather. Massive hurricane system that's coming in, and by Saturday afternoon, it's going to be all the way up into North Carolina. The under in this game, the line is going to move. Get in on it right now. And then the other game, it is NC State at Clemson. I'm taking the over 42. So they have weather adjusted that game. Obviously, Clemson did not look good on defense last week. NC State can score, but they've weather adjusted it down to 42, expecting a lot of rain. But guys, I am a weather expert. I've looked all this stuff up. It's crazy. The system, it says in Clemson, there's about I'd say, 60% chance to rain, but it's really going to be out of the area in South Carolina by 7:30. Remember, this is the ABC 7:30 game. If you're playing the weather, we're taking the under in the North Carolina Virginia Tech 3:30 game. We're taking the over in the NC State at Clemson. It also helps that NC State Clemson game should be competitive, meaning both teams will score points. If you get a final score like 27-20, the over hits. Any team gets into the 30s, it's basically a lock. The Vegas has set the over-under at 42 because they know the weather is coming, but they've mistimed it. It's actually going to be almost all out of the area, and the Virginia Tech Clemson game is basically going to be played in a hurricane. That's what I can say, and it's going to be 7-3 as a final score. So that is free. Those 2 bets, that's what I'm doing when it comes to this massive hurricane. Let's get to the normal ones. We've got UCLA plus 3.5 at home versus Washington. This is a Friday night game. Guys, trust Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is going to win this game. He's going to use his blubber. They're going to win this game. They're going to throw their weight around UCLA plus 3.5 at home. The Rose Bowl is going to be rocking against the Washington team that's a little bit overvalued after their big non-conference win against Michigan State. Of course, we know Michigan State isn't nearly as good. UCLA, major value. Even if UCLA loses on a walk-off field goal, we're still covering. Of course, that line could shift. They could be plus 3. If you can get them at plus 3.5, guys, actually just get a money line. We got to trust Chip Kelly. He will get the job done. He is a superstar, Chip Kelly. UCLA plus 3.5. This is a Friday game. I think this is an 8 o'clock game. San Diego State at Boise State, the under 39. So I think this is very similar to the early season Iowa over-unders where Vegas just could not keep up with how bad the offense was. Both of these teams are horrible at offense. Boise State recently, I believe, fired their offensive coordinator. I'll go under. I could see this game being 14-10, 14-7, something like that. It's just a situation where if I was Vegas, I would be a lot more aggressive, and I would have set this at like 37 or 36. I'll take the under 39. This is the big noon game, and we're back on the Iowa under bandwagon. Of course, it got a little crazy last week. The over-under was all the way down to 34.5. I had gotten it at 36.5, and it might have actually hit if Iowa's kicker had not made a 51-yard field goal. And also Iowa, I think, had 2 defensive touchdowns in that game. So a little bit of an aberration for Iowa on offense, scoring, I believe, 27 points total. Michigan, to me, this is J.J. McCarthy's first big game on the road. This is a noon start time, 11 a.m. Central start time. So these kids are going to be sleepy. It's going to be no score in the first quarter. I think Michigan wins this game like 23-13 or something like that. Michigan's going to be very conservative with the ball. No turnovers. You're facing an Iowa team. You've got to make them drive it down the field and score if they're going to beat you. Again, it kind of factors in the whole idea. J.J. McCarthy, his first big road game against a good defense. Michigan gets the win, but thanks to Iowa's horrible offense and Michigan's inexperience, I like the under 42.5 in that one. Oklahoma -6.5 at TCU. There's a trend with this one. Normally, Oklahoma coming off a bad loss in Big 12 play tends to play really, really well. They are on the road, but I do view this as a correction game. The one thing I would say, it is 6.5. So could Oklahoma win this game on a walk-off field goal and not cover? Yes. I think Oklahoma is going to honestly score 40 plus. We saw how well Dylan Gabriel looked last week, even in the loss. And Brett Venables is going to take onus on himself. He knows he was brought in to improve that Oklahoma defense. They will be improved. I think Oklahoma wins this game by over 10 points on the road. And TCU loses the first game of their season. Georgia State at Army, I'll take the under 58. So this is a situation where Georgia State is 0-4. I believe they're 8-point underdogs at Army. We know Army does not pass the ball. It's been kind of a weird situation where Army has had uncharacteristically high-scoring games. That means they're due, as an offense that really doesn't score, they run the ball a ton, they're due for a lower-scoring game. It also is a noon game. The noon game unders always hit, guys. 58 is too much for a team that just runs the ball. I will take the under, the overall odds on that one. James Madison -23 versus Texas State. James Madison is a program that's really on the up right now. They come back from the 28-3 deficit to beat Appalachian State. They're pissed off. They get a home game with a horrible Texas State FCS. Well, you know what? I don't want to badmouth Texas State. I actually don't know if they're horrible, but they are an FCS team, and I think James Madison's going to score 45 points. If they score 45 points, they're going to easily cover the 23. This is a situation where Vegas cannot keep up with James Madison and their momentum. They're simply going to blow through the water. I would just auto-take James Madison until they lose. I've got them -23. I think this is a 1:30 game. It's not even on ES. It's on some obscure network, I believe. Wake Forest +7 at Florida State. It's just too good value. Wake Forest and their offense +7 at an FS. I think Wake Forest has more offensive talent than FSU does. Even if FSU wins this game, they lose by 6 or 5, they're still covering the 7. I like Wake Forest personally to win this game outright. So I'll take Wake Forest +7 on the road at FSU. Number 10, we've got Northwestern at Penn State. I'll take the under 52. Northwestern can't score. They scored 14 points last week against a MAC school. They're on the road at a Penn State team. Guys, let's be real. Penn State's offense is not explosive. I think I have this game at 37-7. I really like that score. As long as Northwestern doesn't get past like 14, I just have a very hard time believing Penn State is going to, with Sean Clifford, I mean, they'll score, they'll be up, 21-0, whatever, but in terms of Penn State dropping 50 burgers, I just don't see it with their offense, and then if they're up in the second half, they're just going to run the ball. So I love the under 52 overall in that one. That is a 3:30 ESPN game, I believe. Moving on, number 11, Bowling Green at Akron. Give me the over 52.5. Obviously, these two teams are not good, but they have good enough offenses to play a competitive game to where I could see the final score being 31-28, which is 59 total points, the over 52.5 hitting. Both quarterbacks, a little bit more veteran. They know how to score. Again, they're both facing bad defenses. So I'll take the over, maybe a low-key shootout type of game. Two bad teams that just want to sling the rock a little bit. Buffalo +1 versus Miami of Ohio. I guess this might be an overreaction to Miami of Ohio beating Northwestern last week, but if you look at the analytics, guys, trust the analytics. The analytics say that Buffalo should win this game at home by 7 points, and they're +1. Buffalo is a decent team. I believe they are 1-3, but if you look at their team at home versus Miami of Ohio, that is great value, +1. Look at the advanced numbers on that one. Ohio State -41 versus Rutgers. I'm just trailing Ohio State until they lose. They've got a great offense. I will say with a game like this where it's 41 points, you do leave yourself open to Ohio State being up like 52-10 and then Rutgers scoring late, when Ohio State has their third stringers in. Ideally, you would like Ohio State to drop a 50-burger. If they do get to 50, I don't see any way Rutgers and their bad offense will cover the 41-point spread. But it is risky, but it's a situation where, guys, remember, Ohio State is still just 2-2 against the spread. They could very easily move to 3-2. I would expect them to I wouldn't say easily cover the 41, but I think they will cover the 41 thanks to their offense. Number 14, I'll take UGA minus the 27.5 at Missouri. This game opened at 28. It's down half a point. Georgia is pissed. They, just played a bad game against Kent State. They were 45-point favorites. They won by 19 or whatever it was. They're going to be mad. They're facing a horrible Missouri team. This game's got 49-7 written all over it with Georgia easily covering. Number 15, South Florida +8 versus East Carolina. I understand this one, but I still don't get it. South Florida played horrible. They got crushed by Louisville. I think they were 16-point underdogs. They ended up losing by 40. But East Carolina is just not a good football team. If you're giving me 8 points at home for a South Florida team that very nearly at least took Florida to overtime if they would have had a good snap, I'll take South Florida +8 at home versus East Carolina personally. Western Kentucky -6 versus Troy. Western Kentucky, there's just not enough respect being shown to Western Kentucky. They opened -28 versus FIU. They won by 76. That might be more FIU than Western Kentucky, but still, Western Kentucky, they're +6 at Indiana. They probably should have won that game. They cover that spread. Now they're -6 versus Troy. I see them covering that spread. They've got to start showing Western Kentucky more respect. I'm going to keep betting on them for the time being. Virginia at Duke, the over 51. Virginia football is the Antichrist. They've cost me everything. They've cost me billions of dollars, folks. It's disgusting. I'm still betting them. I need their offense to do something. Duke actually has a decent offense this year, and Virginia has a really bad defense. I'm just saying I need to win a bet on Virginia. Maybe we get a little shootout. Brendan Armstrong, both Brendan Armstrong and Tyler Van Dyke. It's so sad what's happened to those quarterbacks. I'm taking the over because I want to win a bet on Virginia. I don't know if it's going to happen. They've cost me everything. I'm going to sue their university. Number 18, UAB -10 at Rice. Little bit of an overreaction, guys. So if you don't know, UAB was a team that was getting a ton of hype in the preseason to possibly go undefeated throughout the entire regular season. They had a really bad loss to Liberty, but they turn around and they beat, I believe, Georgia Southern by 14. Rice is horrible. I know Rice hung in there against Houston, but I'll take UAB -10 on the road at Rice. Number 19, Georgia Tech +24 at Pittsburgh. I'm just not buying Pittsburgh this year. Georgia Tech, that's a lot of points. Maybe they get galvanized under, firing their head coach. They covered against UCF. They only lost by 17, and I think UCF and Pittsburgh are very similar teams in terms of their overall, ability personally. So I'll take Georgia Tech kind of, the decent value +24. Guys, I will say I love the under. I didn't bet it, but I'm just thinking right now that Georgia Tech Pittsburgh under, that's an 8 o'clock game, Heinz Field. It's going to be quiet. That's a good vibe for an under. The Georgia Tech, I don't know what the over-under is. I would guess it'd be like 51 or 52. I'd take the under. Stanford 16.5 +16.5 at Oregon. I love guys, trust David Shaw. David Shaw knows what he's doing. Oregon's gotten lucky. They should have lost last week. They will get probably upset this week. At least Stanford will cover the spread. This Oregon team, they're going to be looking ahead. They're not taking Stanford seriously. It's an 11 o'clock start time. These kids are going to be sleepy. It's going to be 17-17 in the third quarter. And Stanford with a historic upset. It is crazy. But guys, those are my top 10 best bets for college football. It says week 4. I didn't change. Yeah, so I forgot to change that. It's whatever. It is week 5, the best bets. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.